Gentle denizens of the cerebral amphitheatre, it is with profound perplexity and a polyphonic cacophony of rhetorical incantations that we delve into an unprecedented dialectical occurrence. Liberal stalwart destiny, the professorial pugilist of pragmatism, arising from his ideological sanctum to defend none other than Donald Trump, the chthonic harbinger of populist histrionics on the matter of the debt ceiling's potential abolition.
Wait, this can't be real. Trump calls for abolishing the debt ceiling? President-elect Donald Trump said Thursday that Congress should get rid of the debt ceiling a day after he came out against a deal reached by congressional lawmakers to fund the government before a shutdown occurs. In a phone interview with NBC News, Trump said getting rid of the debt ceiling entirely would be the smartest thing Congress could do. I would support that entirely. Unironically, though, I mean, we should get rid of the debt ceiling. But how funny that this guy who talked about responsible spending and balancing the budget and blah, 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 that now when and I bet all the Republicans are going to jump on board with it. Well, actually, maybe, guys, maybe getting rid of the debt ceiling, maybe that's actually a really good idea. Holy. Trump suggested that the debt ceiling is a meaningless concept and that no one knows for sure what would happen if it were to someday be breached. That's true. It doesn't mean anything except psychologically, he said. That's also true. I don't believe this is a real Trump interview. Is somebody feeding him lines? Wait, what?
Push 3.
I want our viewers to feel seen and heard. Suddenly they change the rules. I want them to feel like I'm their voice.
Just spoke with Trump over the phone. Let's start there. Garrett, what else did President-elect Trump say?
Well, Anna, he was pretty unconcerned.
Is no debt ceiling equals modern monetary theory memes? No. Whether or not you have a debt ceiling doesn't have much to do with anything except for, I don't know how many, some countries have debt ceilings and some countries don't, or maybe most of them don't. But basically, the United States government has a maximum amount of money that we're allowed to have as far as debt goes, but it's meaningless because every time we approach the debt ceiling, we just raise it. However, especially recently, what's happening is every time we approach the debt ceiling, people are like, oh, wait, well, let's negotiate by playing chicken with our, literally suiciding the entire country. We're not going to vote to raise the debt ceiling unless we get whatever we want legislatively. So people have been, getting more and more brazen with shutting down the government or playing chicken with the debt ceiling. And it's probably not good that we have to keep voting to raise the debt ceiling. It probably should just be uncapped.
Concerned with the prospect of a shutdown. He essentially wants to see some of these issues, most notably the debt ceiling, which wasn't even part of this conversation really a day ago, be cleared off his plate before he takes office. On the subject of the speaker, I asked if he still has confidence in Mike Johnson. He said, we'll see. He was clearly very disappointed with the work product that came out of the speaker's office in form of that 1,500-page continuing resolution that was essentially nuked yesterday by he and Elon Musk. But the majority of our conversation was about the debt ceiling. Trump told me he's not just keen to see it lifted, as we've all seen and covered so many times in the past, but he'd like to see it gotten rid of entirely, something that's been discussed really by Democrats mostly in the past, but something that he said he would welcome and would actively campaign.
Apparently, someone in chat said only Denmark and the U.S. have a debt ceiling that is set on an absolute amount rather than a percentage of GDP.
Campaign for. He argued that the debt ceiling doesn't work for its purpose. It doesn't actually control debt at all, and that its effect is.
Wait, this might be the smartest thing I've ever heard Donald Trump say about anything ever. Unironically, I'm not exaggerating. This might be the only time in the history of all of Trump talking about anything having to do with government that he has correctly identified a thing that the government does that doesn't suit its original purpose and doesn't really make sense to continue on. What the? Somebody must have given him this talking point. What the? What?
It's merely psychological, and it is used, again, most often by Republicans as a sort of a choke point to get something they want out of the majority when they are in the minority.
What's his motive here? Well, the motive is that he doesn't have to worry about a government shutdown when he's in office, because the administration could just spend like crazy. If you were a Democrat, you should hit him back and say, we'll lift the debt ceiling after Trump's next term, because Donald Trump said he was going to balance the budget anyway, so why does he need to lift the debt ceiling? He shouldn't need to lift the debt ceiling, right? You're going to cut spending anyway, so who cares, right?
He told me in no uncertain terms this morning he'd like to see it gotten rid of entirely. I can tell you just within the last few minutes, Elizabeth Warren, the Democratic senator from Massachusetts, got the opposite end of the political spectrum on so many issues, tweeted her agreement.
Even if you had...
When has U.S. raised debt ceiling historically? It was raised 74 times from March 1962 to May 2011. 18 times under Ronald Reagan, 8 times under Bill Clinton, and 7 times under George W. Bush. And then they raised the debt ceiling 14 times from 2001 to 2016. House rejects Trump-backed plan on government shutdown. Oof. House Republicans rejected the bill. Damn. Senator Mike Lee. House Republicans should hire either Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy as their next speaker. Is that like a thing? Like to be the speaker? Or does he mean Speaker of the House? What happens if they don't vote to raise the debt ceiling? I'd be open to supporting Elon Musk for Speaker of the House. Doge can only truly be accomplished by reining in Congress to enact real government efficiency. The establishment needs to be shattered just like it was yesterday. This could be the way. And by establishment, she means like the United States. Rand Paul floats Elon Musk for House Speaker. When was the last time Speaker of the House wasn't in Congress? He avoided the question by changing the topic. I avoided what question? Every single Speaker of the House has been a sitting House member. Okay, so they asked what happens if you hit the debt ceiling. Part of the U.S. budget, there's a few things that happen. So part of there's a few big, really important parts of the U.S. budget. One is payment of interest on our debt. I don't know this exactly, but I'm pretty sure that you kind of always in chat, you can tell me, is the interest we pay on the debt, is that when you talk about like cash flows from treasury bonds, because if you have a treasury bond, aren't you entitled to some like monthly or yearly cash deposit or some by making this up? Is that part of that interest payment? If the United States basically can't pay interest on the debt, then you're looking at like the whole world looking at the United States. Oh, no, I'm thinking of just bond. No, yeah, that is a bond. Yeah, okay. Then the entire world is looking at the United States and they're saying that like, oh, well, buying U.S. treasury bonds is no longer a safe investment. And the fact that that would ever happen would be very, very, it would like, it's kind of hard to imagine. Like it could be a catastrophic level event where the entire world begins to bail on holding U.S. dollars or U.S. dollar cash equivalents like treasury bonds. And it's just, that would be a very, very, very bad thing. Also, outside of like a monetary foreign affairs thing, you'd also run into not being able to fund the government. This is why we have like partial government shutdowns, maybe not being able to deliver payments maybe to people with Social Security, depending on what you want to take away from, because you're going to have to borrow money and you no longer can borrow money if you got that debt cap to fund your spending bill. So yeah, there's just like, it would be a lot of things that money wouldn't be going out and we might default, which we should never, that should be impossible. We might default on our debt. For people that hold treasury bonds, they wouldn't get payouts from them.
What cosmic alignment of rhetorical stars has conjured such an improbable juncture where oil commingles with water and fire embraces ice in the crucible of public discourse? Destiny, the Socratic gadfly of Twitchtopia, has embarked upon this Herculean defense of Trump's intellectual coherence on the issue, a defense laden with paradox, hypocrisy, and perhaps an accidental coherence that demands our utmost exegetical scrutiny. The debt ceiling as a vestigial relic primum movens, let us orient ourselves amidst the Gordian entanglements of this debate. The debt ceiling, an ostensible bulwark against fiscal profligacy, stands as a paradoxical monument to political theatre and legislative brinkmanship. Ostensibly a mechanism to cap government indebtedness, it functions in practice as an ephemeral choke point wielded by legislators as leverage to exact concessions under the Damoclean shadow of economic collapse. Trump's assertion that the debt ceiling constitutes a meaningless artifice resonates, ironically, with the critiques of Keynesian adherents and proponents of modern monetary theory, a surreal alignment that necessitates dissection. Destiny, ever the logician of chaotic equilibria, has alighted upon this issue with the fervor of an accidental apostle. His reluctant defense of Trump, though veiled in pragmatic necessity, unfolds as a critique of the ceiling's symbolic impotence. He intuits, correctly, that the ceiling serves less as a safeguard of fiscal integrity and more as a performative cudgel, a stage prop in the kabuki theater of congressional infighting. Is this defense of coherence or opportunism? Shall we interpret his foray into this rhetorical minefield as a reluctant fealty to truth or an anarchic act of intellectual iconoclasm? Trump's paradoxical genius, accident or design? It is at this juncture that we must interrogate the fulcrum of Destiny's defense, Trump's alleged intellectual coherence. Is this coherence a product of deliberate policy foresight or a stochastic convergence of rhetorical impulses? Trump's repudiation of the debt ceiling aligns not with the fiscal conservatism his party ostensibly espouses, but with a nihilistic rejection of performative constraints. He identifies, perhaps unwittingly, the psychological theatre embedded within the debt ceiling's construct, a theatre wherein the spectre of default looms large but seldom materializes. Destiny, the reluctant arbiter of rhetorical merit, recognizes in Trump's commentary a latent truth obscured by his characteristic bluster. Is this recognition a capitulation to coherence, or a reluctant acknowledgement that even a broken clock strikes true twice daily? The dialectical tension between Destiny's ideological commitments and his rhetorical obligation to defend coherence renders his position both labyrinthine and illuminating. The performative absurdity of congressional brinkmanship. But herein lies the crux of the conundrum. The debt ceiling as a performative cudgel wielded in the kabuki theater of congressional brinkmanship. The legislative ritual of debt ceiling negotiations unfolds as a tragicomic ballet, where an economic catastrophe serves as a backdrop for partisan posturing. Trump's critique, however accidental in its coherence, lays bare the absurdity of this spectacle. He posits, perhaps unintentionally, that the ceiling's abolition would extricate governance from the quagmire of performative negotiation, a proposition that aligns, ironically, with the critiques of his ideological adversaries. Destiny's defense of Trump's commentary emerges not as an endorsement of his broader ideological project, but as an affirmation of a singular insight. The ceiling, a vestigial relic of fiscal orthodoxy, has devolved into a symbol of legislative dysfunction. Destiny's reluctant defense, while laden with paradox, serves as a clarion call to transcend the performative absurdity of this legislative artifact. The Janus-faced nature of Destiny's rhetorical gambit. Yet, Destiny's defense of Trump is not without its contradictions. Does his critique of the ceiling's performative nature inadvertently legitimize Trump's broader rhetoric of governance by impulse? Is this defense a tacit endorsement of Trump's chaotic approach to policy, or a reluctant acknowledgement of a singular coherence amidst the cacophony of his presidency? Destiny, the Socratic gadfly of digital discourse, navigates this rhetorical labyrinth with the dexterity of a philosopher king and the irreverence of a satirist. His defense, though reluctant, forces us to confront the Janus-faced nature of Trump's critique. On one face, we behold a latent coherence that resonates with critiques of fiscal orthodoxy. On the other, we encounter a nihilistic rejection of institutional constraint that undermines governance itself. Destiny's rhetorical gambit, though fraught with paradox, compels us to grapple with these dualities. Toward a dialectical reconciliation, in summation, Destiny's reluctant defense of Trump on the matter of the debt ceiling's abolition unfolds as a dialectical inquiry into the nature of coherence and contradiction. It invites us to transcend the binary poles of endorsement and opposition, compelling us to grapple with the complexities inherent in contemporary discourse. Shall we interpret Destiny's defense as an act of intellectual rectitude, or as a reluctant concession to the exigencies of rhetorical coherence? This essay, though an exercise in hyper-obfuscation and polysyllabic verbosity, serves as both a critique and a celebration of this dialectical interplay. It stands as a monument to the complexities of discourse in an age of performative politics, a labyrinthine testament to the enduring relevance of intellectual rigor amidst the cacophony of ideological discord.